All right, everyone. So today we are learning about concept 3, which is mainly about the Amazon rainforest. But the concepts that we're going to learn about today really could be applied to any kind of ecosystem on our planet. So when we say ecosystem, we're talking about any kind of environment setting, any kind of particular climate or physical region area. Our LEQ for today says, how has the rainforest been modified or adapted by humans? So if we remember back to concept 1, these are kind of some of our levels of human environment interaction, if we think back to those words, okay? So this picture is kind of cool because it shows you South America. So we're talking about South America, and this outline here is the Amazon rainforest. So it takes up a big chunk of South America. Okay, so we're in our yellow packet for concept 3. You don't need to change the LEQ. It's correct on this one. All right, so your first word, you're going to see that you have a really big space for your first word. It's not because the definition is long. It's because I want you to draw your own carbon-oxygen cycle. Ooh, drawing. Okay, so the actual definition, which I do want you to copy down, you can decide if you want to put this, how you want to organize this. There's not going to be anything else that you need to come back and add to this definition later on in the lesson. I know I've had you do that with some words previously, but you're not going to have to do that here. So maybe put the definition in the extra notes, and then I want you to draw your own version of this cycle in the big space. Okay, so the carbon-oxygen cycle. The two main things I want you to pay attention to in that definition, or in that term, carbon and oxygen. So we're talking about two elements. You'll get way more into detail on this in physical science, but carbon and oxygen, which are two very, very important elements of our atmosphere on Earth. The carbon-oxygen cycle is a process through which plants and animals exchange carbon dioxide and oxygen. Carbon dioxide you might see as CO2, okay? Carbon dioxide, so carbon is the C, and then oxygen we have 2, which is why it's dioxide, so CO2 and oxygen. So the carbon-oxygen cycle is a process through which plants and animals exchange carbon dioxide and oxygen. There's a lot of details that go into this carbon-oxygen cycle. What is on your screen right now in this little picture is what you need to understand, okay? We have oxygen in the atmosphere, all right? Oxygen is floating in our air. It's a major element within the air that we breathe. Animals need oxygen. You and me, we need oxygen, okay? I'm going to kind of cross that out. We're just going to focus on animals breathe in oxygen. So in this cycle, they drew a giraffe. You could draw a little human. If you are artistically inclined, you can draw someone else, draw a specific animal. But animals breathe in oxygen, and we breathe out CO2. So right now, while you're watching this video, you are taking in oxygen and exhaling CO2. Plants, so you draw like a little flower or something, take in that CO2, and along with sunlight, they use CO2 in sunlight to create oxygen through what's called photosynthesis. Hopefully photosynthesis sounds familiar. So plants are then giving off oxygen, which then we breathe in, and then we breathe out CO2. Plants take in the CO2, and through photosynthesis let off oxygen. We then breathe in that oxygen. We give off CO2. The plants take in the CO2 to produce more oxygen, and so on and so forth. And that's how this becomes a cycle. This is super important because we need to understand the balance of carbon and oxygen in our atmosphere, okay? That's going to come up later on. All right, global warming is this process of climate change as seen by an increase in the overall temperature of Earth's systems, okay? What this image shows are some effects of that increase in the average temperature. So if you want to write down a couple of these effects in your extra notes, that might be a good decision. Some really important ones are warmer oceans, So the oceans are actually getting warmer, which is affecting their ecosystems. Stronger storms. We've seen that with an increase in hurricanes and the severity of hurricanes. Higher temperatures and more heat waves. More droughts and wildfires, like what we're seeing in California today. We're seeing less snow and ice. And we're seeing change in weather and animal patterns. So these are all effects of global warming. Okay. The greenhouse effect. We have mentioned this previously, but the greenhouse effect is what happens when greenhouse gases mostly remain trapped in the Earth's atmosphere, which then increases the temperature of Earth. So greenhouse gases, I'm going to abbreviate as GG, greenhouse gases, their chemical makeup causes an increase in the Earth's atmosphere, the temperature. Okay, and this comes from different gases such as methane, nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide is a big one. What this graphic is showing are different human activities that let off these greenhouse gases. We've seen a huge increase in these human activities since industrialization. So making connections. We had industrialization, so then now we're producing more greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases stay in our air, and because of their chemical makeup, they heat the temperature of the Earth. So as the temperature increases, we see more global warming. Okay. Deforestation. Deforestation means the removal of trees in large forest areas like the Amazon rainforest. So I like this image. This is not a photoshopped image. The words are obviously added on, but this is an image of the Amazon rainforest. This section is a section of the Amazon that has not been deforested. Trees have not been cut down. This section has gone through deforestation, and you see the dramatic contrast between the two areas. Big reasons for deforestation are agriculture. A huge cause of deforestation is we clear land in areas like the Amazon to raise livestock and cattle for agriculture, mainly in areas in the West, meaning United States, Canada, Europe, so that we can eat animals, basically. Okay. Slash and burn. Slash and burn, we see this, it's kind of like a way to make deforestation happen. So this relates to deforestation. It's how we cut down these forests. It is an agricultural method where plants are removed by cutting down and burning to clear land for new use, which could be agriculture. This is a big deal in the Amazon. This is happening a lot in the Amazon. Okay. The next two words are really important for you to understand and know the difference between. Sustainable. If something is sustainable, that means it's a technology or a way of production or a way of living that is meant to maintain and preserve natural resources in the earth. So this is good for the environment. We like sustainable things. Some examples could be biking. It could be electric cars and buses, though that's kind of iffy, but it's more sustainable than regular cars and buses. It could be planting more trees. It could be solar panels. It could be walking, planting more things. These are all sustainable activities. Recycling is sustainable. Using like wind, solar energy. These are all sustainable practices. Unsustainable means a way of living that is not concerned with preserving the environment. Something is unsustainable if we are not going to be able to maintain it if continued at present rates. So meaning like our demand for oil, us clearing the rainforest, that's not sustainable. Okay, eventually we're going to kill off the rainforest ecosystem if we just keep cutting it down. Eventually we're going to run out of usable oil. Okay, so these are things that are bad for the environment. okay? And we can't keep them up. We need to replace them with more sustainable practices. All right, your last, which is important for the Amazon, is biodiversity. So if you think about this word, you can kind of split it into two. Bio, which means like our environment, plants, animals, all that good stuff. Diversity means we have a variety, lots of different kinds. So biodiversity is the variety of plants and animals that exist in a particular ecosystem. Ecosystems like the Amazon have really high biodiversity because they have lots and lots of different trees and resources, natural resources, for all these different creatures to thrive. An ecosystem like Antarctica is very dry, it's very cold, so not a lot of different plants and animals are able to live there. Whereas the Amazon, it's much warmer, there's a lot more resources and energy and food, so it's easier for those plants and animals to survive. Okay, so that's the end of our Concept 3 vocab. Some of it was kind of repetitive from the rest of the unit, so hopefully it was not too overwhelming. I want you to go back to Schoology, and I want you to go on to the next task for today's lesson.